Hello, my wonderful besties. I hope you're all well. And today's a good day because guess what?
Guess what, bitch?
We are back with my favorite pastime. Over analyzing romance tropes. On the schedule today, we have the trope enemies to lovers.
Okay, it is enemies to lovers. I want there to be crimes. I want there to be suffering.
I want enemies to lovers story. And I don't mean like miscommunication trope. I don't mean reluctant allies. I mean they're real enemies.
Are we romanticizing toxic behavior? Are we romanticizing toxic behavior? Like, think about it. Think about it, right?
While I don't hate enemies to lovers, I do think it has to happen in a way that A, makes sense and makes me care, and B, isn't completely ick.
Why were all the love interests in romance shoujo animes red flags? Like bright red flags.
For those of you who are unfamiliar, it goes as such. Picture a frumpy girl striving to accomplish a goal that's been on their agenda since birth, but suddenly faces intense competition from the handsome, statuesque guy that looms over her shoulder. They start out as each other's opponents. Sometimes it's one-sided, but ultimately connect despite their differences. I think this trope is fascinating, specifically the conversations that surround it. I am not immune to an opposites attracts premise. The tension is palpable, the drama is always enticing, and the twists and turns the pair put us through are unmatched. Under the term enemies to lovers, you have its siblings, rivals to lovers, hate to lovers, and friends turned enemies to lovers, which I call this phenomenon the enemies dodecahedron to lovers cinematic universe. The now dubbed term has exploded over the past several years, especially within the romance genre. It's become the bread and butter for many, grabbing hold of people by the neck and shifting the way relationships are viewed on screen. Whether it was Mr. Darcy slowly gravitating towards Elizabeth, or the drawn-out vendetta Masamune had on Aki, it's alluring and engaging, but above all else, causes commotion like seagulls lining the shores. While enemies to lovers manifest in all forms of media on varying levels, I'm only interested in the shoujo romance, how it's done, the intriguing parts, and, of course, the sins committed by unfathomable entities. But first, Risa and Otani, stay back. I need to see you in my office. Lovely Complex, the GOAT, the OG, and surprisingly enough, pin drops in terms of discussion on YouTube. I guess it comes with the iconic heralded status. People avoid it like the plague. Risa and Otani's storyline is one that sticks with you forever, as it is the epitome of the most satisfying opposites attracts. Height difference. The pair stumble upon each other through their stereotypical trappings of what society has deemed what boys and girls should resemble. Boys should be tall, built, and suave, while girls should be demure, soft, and shorter than their male partners. Risa, due to her height, has had some troubles with her love life, but when a guy the size of the Eiffel Tower appears, that might change. Vice versa, Otani similarly struggles in this vein, and has a crush on one of Risa's friends who is seemingly flawless from every angle. The two strike a deal to help one another attain their desired partners by befriending them. Did that work out for them? No, because there are 24 episodes. But as time presses onward, Risa and Otani grow closer despite their quippy banter, and sparks begin to fly so high that you scream like there's no tomorrow. You can tell from the jump, Risa and Otani will be endgame, but it's not blasted in your face, and it took some time for them to become acquainted. The pair continually attempt to repel one another by placing bets, but it's the quiet, intimate moments about their experiences with rejection and discrimination from their height that ultimately attract them together. Their height, in the grand scheme of things, might have been the only hindrance to them becoming an item sooner. partner. No one was buying Risa regarding Otani as her arch nemesis in all seriousness. The pair are more like frenemies. Their relationship throughout the course of the series is a slow burn, with a singular objective to capture their entire story. Who can achieve getting a partner first? Clearly, Risa and Otani's plan failed because their ideal partner was sitting in plain sight the entire time. Who do you think you were fooling? Another rivals to lovers story that hits a nostalgia spot for me is Special A. I know, haven't heard that name in ages. This one is the straight definition of the trope, because Hikari and Kei are unequivocally each other's adversaries. Even though we're still in a school setting, unlike Lovecom, the pair are each other's direct competition. You never got the sense in Lovecom that Risa and Otani were pitted against each other to the death. Hikari and Kei, on the other hand, are a different story. Hikari and Kei, since they were children, grew up as opponents, from academics to sports and everything in between. Hikari has a mission to surpass Kei's #1 ranking and fulfill her aspirations of defeating her self-proclaimed rival. Keyword: self-proclaimed, because Kei never saw Hikari that way. Not even a little bit. With the pair's high academic standing, they are placed in the elite group aptly called SA, who are among the top 7 performing students at school. They spend their days lounging around and enjoying the lavish wealth that comes with their prestige. It's the opulent, rich version of his and her circumstances, but probably not as notable since Fully Cooley wasn't attached to it. What makes Special A beloved and recognizable in the enemy's dodecahedron to lovers cinematic universe, yes, I'm saying the entire term, cry about it, is the steady progression between Hikari and Kei becoming hooked, lined, and sinkered. Hikari's whole world at the start revolved around outperforming Kei, so much so that she decided to attend the same high school as him to achieve this goal. But that's not her whole identity, and she is genuinely a sweet person, and her bourgeoisie status outside of SA reinforces this. While Hikari and Kei's rivalry extends longer than welcomed, it never feels voyeuristic because of the pair's individual goals. They are both driven and passionate about their studies and advancing their own potential careers. Even if sometimes I wish the story would stop beating around the bush without giving us a glimmer of hope that Hikari and Kei as a ship will happen. I love me a slow burn, but give me some signals early on at least. These two pairings specifically show us how someone who is the complete opposite of you or your deep-seated rival might be the one who truly understands you. Because as the saying goes, if something or someone is too good to be true, then it probably is. However, when this veers into more uncharted areas, do enemies to lovers enter some pitfalls? Well, like anything, yes. And for some, that embodiment is emblemized by Maid-sama. Misaki and Usui, please step up to the podium. Maid-sama was a series that I really enjoyed when I was younger. It was the quintessential hate-to-lovers setup I craved. In recent years, however, I've been a little nervous revisiting Maid-sama since it's developed a less than stellar reputation. It's categorized in the same vein as series like Blackbird, Hot Gimmick, and Love So Life, where the male characters are perceived as vile, nasty slime suckers. The manifestation of this rhetoric within fandoms about Usui's character specifically has turned into a TikTok trend. Usui is a red flag. In these videos, users lament their feelings on Usui's possessive and pushy nature, declaring him a stalker, which is sparked by, you guessed it, signs of a red flag.
At this point, it has to be some kind of conspiracy theory to make girls want to settle for men that aren't good enough for them and are just overall not good people. And in my personal opinion, the worst offender of this is Usui from Kaichua Maid-sama. I hated him even as a child, and I think that's saying a lot because I was not that smart of a kid. And that's saying something because I've always liked characters that are a little bit questionable. But Usui I've always hated because he's just a full-on stalker. He follows her everywhere. He goes to her work, he knows where she lives, he literally knows her family members. Not to mention that they already go to school together. And they have no relationship progression either. The entire premise of the show is just that he's blackmailing her because he knows her secret.
This assessment is comical for two reasons. Firstly, equating the aforementioned series with Maid-sama is ludicrous, given that Misaki and Usui, for the most part, behave like normal teens. It's not as polarizing or controversial as those ones, even given its flaws. Secondly, there are male leads in shoujo romance who are objectively worse than Usui. I think Maid-sama particularly garners a lot of attention due to nostalgia, but in terms of enemies to lovers, they are considered more iffy. So let's see how we got here. Misaki and Usui's relationship follows the typical meet-cute. Misaki is the student council president at her high school who, during the evenings, works in a maid cafe to support herself. Misaki's life takes a drastic turn when the popular boy Usui spots her working at her job and becomes a regular customer to get to know her better. As the story progresses, the two become inseparable, with Usui prioritizing giving Misaki his undivided attention. Meanwhile, Misaki endeavors to focus on her obligations and discover who Usui is as a person. Within this premise, we can see the characters learn more about themselves and evolve to fit each other's needs. It's a collective effort to work together to protect their crafted image and reputation. Although with the stipulation, Usui keeps Misaki's job a secret and strives to develop an authentic connection with her regardless of how his peers view him. This method of harnessing connection falls along the lines of Tsukasa wanting to help Tsukushi pay for her summer trip since she couldn't afford it. The rich boy and poor girl opposites attracts compatibility is omnipresent with many older shoujo romances. At the same time, I don't want to act like Usui's slanderers are here for no reason. There are times when he can be a real piece of work. Usui's a bit of a loose cannon with his approaches to Misaki, frequently using deception as a means of spending time with her, which is kind of hard to ignore even for avid Usui supporters. As mentioned before, Usui's development aligns closely with Tsukasa's, where he is initially presented as this untouchable force who, through osmosis and spending more time with someone he cares about, develops into the heartwarming, desirable guy who unconditionally loves their girl. However, since Usui's reductive behavior is framed as him having a good heart, it restricts any resentment the audience might harbor for him. Usui might participate in eyebrow-raising acts, but he's genuinely a good guy. He's just being nice. This parallel favors the enemies to lovers pairing even further, with the implication suggesting that the characters' differences aren't distinguished between right and wrong, but through their own moral compass. Usui might be Misaki's obstacle in a sense, but in the end, she is supposed to overcome it and see the bright spots around him. This is the essence of the enemies to lovers parallel in Maid-sama, having someone help you expand your horizon on the world and value the fun moments without harping on every detail. Before anyone accuses me of think-piecing this trope, my main gripe with it is not what you think. I'm not gonna pull out the abusive card. I couldn't even do that in good faith since most of the couples I mentioned all have happy endings. The main downside is usually the initial power dynamic, even if the characters aren't in positions of authority. If a person's autonomy is left in the dust in favor of developing another, is where a lot of things can go wrong. Especially when it's glaringly obvious that the weight of each person's actions aren't measured the same. Historical retelling seem to be a prominent feature of this phenomenon, since it often uses class discrepancies as the primary appeal. I also think attraction plays into this as well. It's a subjective framework that often prioritizes physical beauty. Let's be for real for a second. If these female characters weren't presented as pretty in a plain Jane sense, these boys wouldn't give them the type of day. We can't pretend Usui or by proxy Kei would simply go for a girl with a great personality. In the end, the enemies to lovers trope and all its subtypes, although it might be overdone, is an inventive way of utilizing romance in unconventional ways. At worst, the employment of enemies to lovers can present insidious themes as positive. At best, it's wildly entertaining that keeps you on the edge of your seat for a bumpy ride. Maybe, just maybe, you yourself may have been a product of entering a relationship with a red flag band. Oh god, I gotta stop making fun of the people on TikTok. Okay. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this silly little video of me just rambling about some stuff I've been noticing. If you enjoyed the video, you know the drill. And I'll see you guys soon for my next one. Until next time, bye!